had people actually say, oh my God, and people like successful friends who are like very successful. Oh my God, I can never go on social media and talk about a product. Like that is just so embarrassing.
Oh, wow.
You're an actress. How can you do that as an actor? You'll never be taken seriously as an actress. That's what I was told. And I said, if that's true, well then, so be it. But I'm not going to stop wanting to get information out there for people who might need it. And I don't want to stop trying to help people because that's my purpose, right?
This is the Home of Health Span podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Kelly Kruger Brooks, it is so lovely to see you. Before we started recording, we had so many different directions we could take this, and I'm excited to take all of them.
Me too. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, we're in 2024 now. If possible, I'd like to take a step back and go to 2014. Let's go a decade back.
Let's go a decade, and what a decade it has been. In 2014, I was pursuing my career as an actress. I was auditioning a lot. I was up for a lot of things. The acting world is really insane. It's an insane place to be. You have to be so passionate and dedicated and so resilient. And you hear so many no's, and the rejection could be the color of your hair, and it was frustrating for me to have zero control over living my purpose. So for example, as an actor, you have to wait for an agent to submit you on an audition. Then you have to wait for that agent to decide, okay, I think she's right for this. Then you have to wait for the casting director to say, oh, sure, I would see her. I could see that. Then you go in an audition for the casting director, and you have to have the casting director think you're good enough to then go to the producers, and the producers to the studio, and the studio to the network, and the network to decide that, yes, today I get to wake up and live my dream. My purpose and my dream has always been to make a difference in people's lives. So coming from a very broken home as a child and having a very difficult childhood, I made a decision that I wanted to be for young people what I needed when I was growing up. I wanted to somehow make a difference in their lives. So through acting, my goal was to always play characters that had a big arc. So in the beginning, maybe be very broken, and then show the strength and the resilience and whatever that character did, and then they win in the end. So that's why I always wanted to do film, because you can actually see that arc within, the course of the film. Yes. Yeah. But then I learned that you can do the same thing on television, just may take a little bit longer to tell that story. But that was my dream, is I wanted to give young girls particularly strength. And I wanted to show them through. So I was very drawn to true stories. When I first started acting, I booked like 3 films that were based on true stories. And I think I was just so drawn to that stuff because I wanted to, A, do those characters justice, but B, show people who were watching how you win in life, basically, through my choices as an actress. Even though I didn't have control over where the story went, somehow it would sort of play out that way.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of people, it's far easier to imagine something when you've seen models for it, right? The little figures, or, the Black women in NASA that were the computers and everything. It was in this community of all these scientists. So it was just normal that you would be around scientists, and that seemed like a normal aspiration. It's part of, my daughter goes to an all-girls school, and part of it is, the best athletes are girls, the best at math and science and everything. So there's never a question of, oh, can girls do this or that? So that what you're saying, it makes so much sense to me on being able to be that model for people. Yeah. That's also incredible.
Growing up, it's funny because growing up, I grew up with an older brother, and he was so good at everything. I mean, he was an athlete. He was great. I'm Canadian, so it was hockey. I wanted to be a hockey player. And my mom said, you're too tiny to play hockey. You can't play hockey. Okay, I want to play ringette, which is the female, I found myself as a child wanting to prove that I could do it, even though I was a girl. And this isn't like a male-female thing. It's more just like, he was so good, and I wasn't scholastically smart. I was what my mother calls street smart. I did not love school. I didn't love it. But unfortunately, teachers would say how I'm not at him. So I can't afford to miss school because, I was a dreamer. I'm a creative person. If I loved something in school, I excelled at it. But if I did not like it, forget it. Like there's just no way I was going to thrive in it. And that was and thank God I had the mom that I had that really nurtured that and exposed me to so many things. And, so I couldn't play hockey. I couldn't play ring out, but guess what? I could be a figure skater. And she told me, I was 12 years old and I said, I want to be an Olympic skater. And she said, well, Kelly, you would have had to start a long time ago. And I said, no, I don't agree with that. So what did she do? She got me a coach. She got me everything I needed. And then I decided when I saw the girls on the ice, okay, I probably should have, because I did start when I was 3 and then I didn't want to. So the great thing about my mom is she exposed us to everything. Yeah. And then we got to choose whether we wanted to continue with it or not. And I think that was a big thing, which is I always wanted to sort of do what my brother did and prove that I could do it. And this has a lot to do with my father and father issues and the need to be loved and accepted and get that kind of nurture from the father figure that, I felt like I didn't have, and that's a whole other thing. But part of my drive as to why I do what I do, and why I've always been driven to help people and make a difference in their lives.
Well, and to tell the different stories, right? So, you have the arc that is your own life and you're sharing, and that has its power. But there's also this multiplier effect with TV shows, with movies, that you're able to model that in a number of ways. So you talk about your mom bringing and giving you access to the options so you can choose. It seems a very similar thing, what you're doing. Like, hey, here are all these amazing stories and ways that people have found under difficult circumstances to win. And so you find what parts resonate with you or what story arcs resonate with you to start crafting your own life. Is that fair?
100%. And it's interesting because I'm learning that as we speak, that part of my, it is finding different ways to win in life. And the truth is, at this point in my life, I thought I would be much more successful as an actress than I am, right? Because I had certain goals, and I still do. I'm not saying things changed when I became a mom, but I definitely feel like, I think this is a really important message for everybody, that sometimes the avenue you think you're going to take to achieve what you want may not be what you initially thought, right?
Yeah. Well, and what you thought you wanted may not be the right thing too. So you get to the end. I think Jim Carrey has one of my favorite quotes of all time of, I wish everybody could get rich and famous to realize that it's not the answer.
100%. I have the chills when you say that because it couldn't be more true. I thought that the only way that I could be happy in life was when I succeeded as an actress. So let's go back to 2014 for a second. Yeah. I was auditioning. I was getting some roles. I had worked. I'd been on the Young and the Restless for years. And then I got fired from that show, which changed everything to that was my identity, right? Yeah, I was a teenage, I was 19 years old. I was supporting my family. I was it's who I was, right? And then when that went away, I didn't understand at that point how you use one job to get the other and you use it to get heat. And I didn't understand that. So instead of looking at, okay, great, I'm coming off this, the number one soap, I'm young, I'm talented, I have all these things that, let me go hustle and sort of put it into the next. I sort of looked at it as, the biggest failure. And that I wasn't good enough. And I wasn't, I took it so personally. Yeah. When these things happen, especially on a soap opera, they happen every day for nothing. It's a storyline. It's whatever. It has nothing to do with you. Particularly during my when they cut me initially, they got rid of 5 cast members. It was a whole storyline that was, but I didn't understand that. And it was so much so that I remember showing up at an event and there were, photographers there. And in my head, I was like, well, they're not going to want my picture because I'm not on the soap. And it was my identity. And I walked in and they started they were they were, red carpet photographers. And when they started taking my picture, I was confused. I was so young. I didn't understand the game,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're a teenager, right? Like, how would you? Yeah.
Right. So I was on the soap and I was, pursuing auditioning and getting a lot of, getting super, super close to getting something. And the last minute they go with the other girl. And what would happen is my life was audition, get done with the audition, wait for the phone to ring. Did I get the job? Did I not? And what happens at that point when you are an actor and you are unemployed and you are waiting for that job is desperation, right? And like anything else, when you go in with a desperate energy or you want something so badly, you actually push it away, right? Yeah. I'll give you an example of that. I think it was 2016, I had 3 auditions come across my desk. One of them I wanted so badly. Okay. This was my role. Like it was everything. And I worked on it so hard. Okay. Like and even when I taped it, it was like, I worked it to death. The other one was another soap. It was a test. I was like, okay, whatever, been there, done that. Didn't really matter. And then the third one was a movie that I was just like, I've done these, like, whatever. I don't really care. Okay. So the one that I wanted so bad, I spent so much time on. I auditioned for it. The one that I said, I've done this, the movie, I basically cold read it, barely prepared. I booked it. Didn't even get a call back on the one that I wanted. And the other one was just, they went a different direction. But it really showed me that when you truly, truly like need something, it's an energy that you put out that is actually pushes people away. And it actually can, whereas when you're in the place of just being like, okay, I'll take it, I could take it or leave it. You do your best. The work still needs to be there. Things usually do work out. So in 2014, I was at that place where I was just very desperate. And every audition that came in, I needed it because A, it defined me. B, it was how I was supporting myself. And C, it's what I did and what I wanted to do. So my whole life revolved around that. And I said, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of waiting for all these people to tell me that I can make a difference today. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start. What am I great at? What am I like? What can I put out there that's not acting that I can teach people, I can educate people, or I can help people in some way? And I had been on a crazy journey I've always been into health and wellness since I was very, very, very young. My grandfather was actually a brain surgeon, like a very world-renowned, well-respected brain surgeon. And I never got to meet him, but his research and the things that he did was unbelievable. And so from a young age, I innately, and his way of being was very intuitive. So he knew about things that we're only finding out about now, right?
Yeah, the science is now catching up to what he picked up on. Yeah.
So my mom raised me, Eastern European. She raised me very much the way she was raised, which is, we don't eat out of a can because there's BPAs, but we didn't know about BPAs back then, right? So just naturally, I never really liked processed foods. I never drank, I call them soft drinks. What do you pop? Cola?
Yeah, soft drinks.
Soft drinks, yeah. Because they burn my throat. I always just drank water. That was just what I did. I was exposed to it. My mom had junk food in the house. I never liked it. I wanted real food after school. So it's just very interesting that my body naturally always wanted the cleaner, healthier stuff. And so I thought, okay, well, and then I battled with acne for a very long time. And being an actress, that's really, really, really hard. Because when I first started, I was actually a model, and I'll never forget, I showed up at a photo shoot, and this photographer who was like the photographer, he was so rude, and he was like, telling me how he was popping a pimple on my face, and he said, I can cover redness, I can't cover bumps, like making it seem like it was my fault that I had this on my face, like just so many.
Clearly on the way there, you're like, what I want really badly.
Like I would really love a pimple right now, you know. So I had battled, and I had basically tried every product known to man to try and balance my skin. I also loved makeup and loved beauty. So I thought, okay, what if I start a blog about, teaching people how to, use cleaner makeup. I was starting to get into clean beauty at the time. I was understanding what parabens were doing to our skin. I was understanding what, how our skin is our largest organ and it absorbs everything that we put in it, and just trying to maybe I could educate people a little bit through this. Well, guess what? It is very uncool in 2014 to be an actress and have a blog. It was very uncool. Okay. It's embarrassing. Oh my God. Kelly's I would ask people, hey, can you just support me? I'd start posting on social media and I'd say to my friends, hey, can you just leave an emoji under it so I can get some engagement? Cause that helps me with brand deals and stuff like that. Nobody. And it was and I had people actually say, oh my God, and people successful friends who are very successful or were very successful at the time. Oh my God, I can never go on social media and talk about a product. That is just so embarrassing.
Oh, wow.
You're an actress. How can you do that as an actor? You'll never be taken seriously as an actress. That's what I was told. Okay. Wow, and I said, you know what, if that's true, because it was very uncool at that time, right? Nobody was doing it, or very few people were doing it, but actresses weren't doing it. And I said, if that's true, well then so be it. But I'm not going to stop wanting to get information out there for people who might need it. And I don't want to stop trying to help people, because that's my purpose. Right.
Yeah.
So I continued to do it, and I started my blog was called Madison Charles. And the reason I named it Madison Charles is because I had 2 dogs. I got the first one I got when I was 19 years old, when I was on the soap. Okay. And her name was Maddie, and she was a pug. And then I got Charlie, who is a boxer, and they lived to be 14 as a boxer and 17 as a pug, which is unheard of. Yeah. And we went through everything together. I mean, when I tell you that they were my strength, I mean, it's an understatement. They were everything to me. And I always said, if I ever had a lion one day, I would want to name it Madison Charles in honor of them. But also I thought it was a cool name.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
And then I thought, well, if I think of health, and this is going to sound really weird, and you might think that this is crazy, but Sheryl Crow announced that she had breast cancer. I was very young. I think I was probably about 19. And she had mentioned that she attributed it to leaving plastic water bottles in her car. And then they would get heated up, and then that would release the BPAs. And I was so young when I heard this. And I thought, I believe that. I really believe that. I believe that plastic is probably not great for us. And I said, and if it's not great for us, then it can't be good for my dogs, right? So I started back then not only drinking from glass and making sure the water was filtered, but my dogs never drank tap water. So truthfully, I just felt like they did represent health, as weird as that sounds, because they ate clean. They drank clean water. They got out and exercised. They spent a lot of time in the sun. They were in a happy environment, right? So all of these things, I really felt like energy. I just felt like, who else to better represent health than those 2, right? Yeah. So that was the name of my blog. And I started sharing makeup tips and beauty tutorials and things like that. Now I will tell you that luckily I have soap fans, and soap fans are the most loyal, incredible, most beautiful people ever. They follow you to the ends of the earth. They're amazing. And to this day, it's my soap fans that have really made this possible for me to do. Yeah. But I wasn't making any money. It was, I could tell you, I worked for free for, 7 years for free. I'm talking. And then I said to my husband, my now husband at the time, I said, well, you know what? I don't need to make money as long as I'm making a difference. And I think the money will come. If I just keep doing it, it'll come. And also, if I could get free beauty products, then I'm saving money. So, so I just kept at it, even when I was getting rejection after rejection, and I was watching people around me really grow much faster than I was growing. And it was frustrating. But there was something in my gut that was just, I have to keep doing this. And whether it was, somebody sending me a DM saying, wow, I tried your makeup technique that I saw on YouTube today, and my husband told me I looked beautiful for the first time in a really long time. And I would be sobbing, I was like, I helped that,
That happened. Yeah.
Then, I did this and I continued and I started. And the most important part of this story is that when I launched my blog in 2014, I was so focused on the blog and getting it started that I wasn't focused on the phone ringing. And literally, as I was building the site, I got offered a movie. So I had to stop. I had to go shoot the movie. And at that point, I was like, oh, God, I got to go do this movie. And I can't, So I started working a lot because I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on something else. And so I allowed that space for the other side to come in, right? And when I'd walk into rooms, I would be like, especially when I started earning, it was like, well, I don't need this. So it would be cool, but I don't need it. My soul needs it creatively. So so it was just an interesting thing where I thought all actors need something else, because if they don't have that other thing, then it's a really miserable experience.
Yeah. It's a more universal, I think, point than just actors in that, you could be a salesperson. And once you make the sales call and you're waiting for the client to make a decision, there are only so many times you can chase before you push away, right? You talk about that being desperate, or you're advocating for an idea in your company. And there's only so much you can push, and then certain things are out of your hands. And outside even the professional life, this generic concept of, look, we do a certain amount of work, and then that work to come to fruition needs time to germinate, right? Like we planted the seeds, we watered it, but standing over it 24/7 is not necessarily going to make a difference. And it seemed like a mindset that you had when you were younger too, of, hey, look, you're probably not big enough to go hit people against the blocks in hockey. So then you have the mindset, okay, well, if I can't do that, what can I do? And let me go look what I can do and put my efforts and work there. And then you did it again. But I think it's important for the listeners to understand, even when you intellectually know that, and you intellectually knew it at 12, we forget it at times. You get into this funk and you're held back, and then you're like, wait a minute, I have this agency. I can control this. Do you have any daily kind of stress management, mindfulness practices to try to keep you on kind of that keel to not have to let it slip a week or a month, but say, okay, I can check in today and get back there?
Absolutely. I mean, meditation is key, I think, daily. So much so, when you talk mindset, it's very easy to focus on negative things, obviously, right? And when you go down that, I could say for years, I was in this really negative, almost depressed state because I wasn't where I wanted to be. And I didn't understand at the time that it's just the flip of a switch and the way you look at things and the way you perceive things that can change that reality so quickly, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was becoming a mother that really helped me learn this lesson, because it changes everything, your purpose. And so what's very important to me, I should say, is, I had a very hard childhood, I mentioned, and I didn't really have the tools on how to cope with what I was going through. I would see my mom at a very young age journaling and writing in a diary. So I, at a very young age, started journaling and writing in a diary to get out my feelings and to figure out and to try and get past them, right? Because living in it is the worst place to be. So you need to find, so I think from a very young age, I was always trying to get away from that feeling of, I don't know the word, but just sadness and anxiety and depression and fear and all of those things. And the only way to get out of it is to push through it. So what are those tools? And so as a mother now, I find it very important. My kids are very young. They're 4 and 2. But my 4-year-old and I, in the morning, we start every day with meditation. And meditation, what that means for us is we go sit in the closet. I have, red light in the closet. Put it on and we hold hands, we close our eyes, we take a couple deep breaths, and we talk about, I have her describe what the most exciting thing is for her, what makes her the happiest, right? And so she'll describe it to me, and then she'll talk about 3 things she's grateful for, and it's usually me and the family, her dad and her sister, and then so I put her in a happy and I'm trying to train her brain to in the morning focus on, what are you most excited about today? What would make today perfect? What would make today amazing? Because I've learned the value of creating that mindset so that it's a habit, right? Because we know that negative thinking and positive thinking are habits, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to train her at such a young age to constantly focus on the good. And so that she never has to sit in these things. So if she's upset about something, well, what can we learn from that? What is positive from this? How can we focus on the next thing how can we get your state happy? And part of that is close your eyes and think about something that makes you happy, and you'll instantly change your state. I tell her all the time, feel these feelings, feel frustrated, feel angry, feel sad. And then let's find a way to shake it off and move on and learn from it. And I know some people might think, well, that's young. 4 is young, but I wish I had this at 4.
Yeah.
I wish I had this kind of training, because it is, my husband is he's from Hawaii. His parents are they've been married for 50 years. His mom wakes up every morning and watches the dolphins on her lanai, and she's, watching the whales, and life is just beautiful for them. They've been in love for, I remember their 45th wedding anniversary was 45 years of marital bliss is what his dad said. And that's foreign to me. Okay. I don't understand. That's completely foreign. Yeah. So he naturally was raised with this mindset. And so when we met, and we were so opposite, because I would go to the negative and things would roll off his back and he would be very positive. I was trying to learn how to adapt that mindset or adopt that mindset.
It's a tool. It's a tool to get. Yes. I mean, I love what you're talking about that you do with your daughter. My daughter will meditate with me, but just sit in my lap and we look out over the ocean and we do that. But she's 8, but it's still kind of boring. If we're not running, but to have that conversation, to kind of set that mindset. Do you use any apps, or is it just the two of y'all?
Because it doesn't, remember, their attention span is very short, right?
Right.
So it's really just the meditation with her. So I used to do, I technically do TM, but I just have, it's been hard to really keep up with that with my schedule and my life. Yeah. So we keep it very short. It's 3 minutes of, we sit, we hold hands, we get ourselves into a happy state. Then we go outside barefoot in the grass and we do some grounding. Yeah. Right. And she understands, she asks for it all the time. She says, Mom, can we ground? Can we ground? Because she understands the effect that it has. Yeah. So we do some grounding, and then we just started our own vegetable garden. So we go and we water our plants and our veggies and they're starting we're starting, we have zucchinis now and the tomatoes are coming in, and it's such a cool thing for them. My 2-year-old is a part of this too, to see you plant a seed and it doesn't happen right away. Right. Yeah. It takes time. And then you watch that blossom, and you have to be patient. And we know kids are not good with patience. They want it now. Right. Right. So it's just, we have our morning routine, and one thing we do is we sit and we have breakfast all together. That's one thing we're so blessed to think. One thing working from home that I get to do, which, I couldn't do if I was on location shooting a movie, Right. Yeah. So we have our morning routine, and that really helps me to answer your question, keeping my mind set in a really positive place. I do, I do cold plunge. My husband and I are really into cold plunging right now. We don't have a cold plunge yet, but we do ice baths. So we'll run a bath in the morning, and we'll scream on the top of our lungs as we jump in the ice bath.
So do you have an ice maker? Do you load it with ice?
We load it with ice. We usually get bags of ice, and if we can't get enough ice from our ice maker, we have to find a better way. We should probably just invest in a cold plunge at this point, but we wanted to make sure. Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that it was something, that it wasn't a phase, and that we were going to actually keep up with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But that really instantly helps you. You want to talk about mindset. You need so much willpower, and you have to be so mentally strong to put your body through that. But the best part about doing something like that is you get in there and you say, this is the hardest thing I'm going to have to do all day. And then everything else just is easy. Right.
Right. Yeah. It's just running downhill after that. Right. You get over that. It's running downhill. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
You mentioned breakfast. And so nutritionally, right, you're someone who's clearly very, very thoughtful about whole health, but especially nutrition. A lot of the content you share, it's around recipes, around nutrition. How do you think about that? We already said, hey, it can be a religion. How do you think about it?
Well, it is a religion in my house. Yeah. So much so that my children, my greatest moment so far as a mom, I should say my greatest win in this as a mother, was my daughter and I were walking through Whole Foods, and my daughter pointed at like a pre-made cake or cupcake or something. And she said, "Hey, Mom, can you make that for me?" And I said, "Of course I can." And she said, "My mom is the best chef and she makes the healthiest things that are good for my body so I could still enjoy them, but they're good for my body." And I started, I'm like, my job here is done.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And, I am not a chef. I need to make that very clear. When I met my husband, I did not know how to cut an onion. I did not know how to chop a piece of garlic. So let it be known that I would, and continue to, look at the burn on my finger. That's from trying to make tangulu the other day. So I am very clumsy. I never understood why people enjoyed cooking, because to me, it's like you spend all this time and then it's just gone. Like as an actor, you spend all this time working on a project and then it's on film forever, right? As when you cook, you spend all of this time and then it's just gone and there's nothing to show for it.
And you have to go clean it up.
And then you have to clean, which is the worst part. Yeah. So I never really understood it until I was trying to get pregnant. It wasn't happening right away. So I've always been very mindful about my food. I've always been, like I mentioned as a kid, intuitively, I just like cleaner food. I have really weird allergies that are today, like, thank God I have had these allergies, because like to gluten and to brewer's yeast, and I unfortunately am allergic to red meat. And I know there's a lot of positives to eating red meat, but I've never been able to eat it. My body just doesn't digest it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I naturally have never liked bubbly drinks or anything. It just worked out that way. So when I was trying to get pregnant, I went down a rabbit hole because I didn't understand that you don't just get pregnant. Like sometimes it takes a couple of months, right? But because we had waited, I thought, oh my gosh, what if I miss the window? What if I can't do this? What if I can't give this to my husband? What if, I was just assumed when I was ready to get pregnant, I would just get pregnant.
Right.
Didn't understand. So I went down this rabbit hole of understanding about fertility and understanding that as women, you don't get to choose the amount of eggs that you're born with, the amount of eggs that you will ever have, but you can change your egg quality, and your egg quality can be changed by your environment and by your diet. And so I started learning about everything that affects your endocrine system, which is leading me into my oils and why I started them, because perfume is toxic. Synthetic fragrance is toxic. And we don't realize how so many things, like so many of our beauty products, are loaded with chemicals that get into our system and affect our fertility, essentially, and affect our egg quality. Things like, even you don't think about it. And I went a little bit crazy. I'm not going to lie. Like I was a little too extreme, where my husband at one point was like, you have to come back to the middle. Like this is just too much. Right.
Yeah.
But my feeling is I wanted a baby.
Yeah.
I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that I was doing everything I could to have that baby. And if it didn't happen, well, then that's our journey and we'll go on to the next step. But if I can control certain things that could potentially, result in me, then I'm going to do it.
It's that mindset over, right? Like you have this purpose, and what's in my control, and I'm going to keep working what's in my control.
There you go. So I went through my house and I got rid of every plastic Tupperware. I stopped eating out, because you don't realize that when you get that hot Chinese food, it's in plastic, and then you're getting all those chemicals and you're eating. So I just started doing all these things and understanding how you can change your egg quality, and started cooking and got pregnant. Was like, now I have a child inside of me. I want to make sure I keep this pregnancy. Let me be really clean and conscious about what I'm putting in my body. So I started really my meats, like everything had to be, ethically sourced and no hormones, like organic, everything. Right. And then that sort of turned into, then I had the baby, and now it's like, I was, breastfeeding. It's like, what am I giving to and then the pandemic hit. So truly the cooking side of things, and started at that point where my husband was teaching me a lot of things too. My husband's mother, my mom, are recipes from when I was a kid, but she lived in Montreal at the time. So And it was a lot of trial and error. And I started a thing on a series on YouTube called Kelly's Kitchen. And it was really Kelly's Kitchen. It's not Kelly's Kitchen unless you break something, burn something, or make a mess. And half the time it's me dropping things and burning things and ruining dishes. But then ultimately in the end, I get to the result. So it doesn't matter. There's a big lesson there in that same thing. It's the theme, I think, of what we're talking about is you might not get to the end the way you think or the way you hope. And it may be really messy, but eventually you get there and the result is great. And then to go back to what I didn't understand about cooking, where you ate it and then it was just gone. Now I have a child who is going to be eating the food that I make. So it's not gone. It's helping her grow.
Yeah, it's literally in the cells of her body. It's building a human, right?
Yes. And so that's where my real passion for sharing this, because prior to this, my content really took a turn. It used to be very fashion beauty. And I'm not going to lie, I find fashion is helpful for some people, but I found it it wasn't for me because, not to say that I won't do fashion, but I don't want to put out content that's like, look at me and how good I look and look at what I could afford, especially today. You know what I mean? Like, I want people to come to my account and feel good, and not only feel good, feel like, oh, wow, I could do that. Oh, wow.
And that's the thing, right? Like, you're not just modeling, but providing the map, the roadmap of saying, hey, to live well, here's how it can be done. Here are the recipes. Here's the pieces to put in place. Yeah.
And I think the things that people don't realize is, and I'm 100% the example of this. Prior to this journey, prior to understanding that I had an allergy to gluten, and prior to understanding how certain foods can affect you, I was tired all the time. Like, I had no energy. I was just always lethargic. And then I met an acupuncturist who didn't tell me that I was not going to be eating gluten. She just put me on a diet to help balance my hormones. And slowly I said, oh my God, I have all this energy. My skin was clearing up. And I said, oh, wow. And then I went to the allergist and found out that I, in fact, am allergic to gluten. And so doing this, I feel like on social media is understanding that just because you're eating clean, just because you're not eating inflammatory oils, just because you aren't eating the gluten, doesn't mean you can't enjoy everything. And not only can you enjoy it and make it, which goes back to what my daughter said, like, can you make this? You can make it, but make it better. But you'll feel good and you'll have energy. And you just, it's like a feeling of accomplishment too. And some people say, oh, I don't really have time to do it. Well, guess what? You're going to have more time and energy when you're putting the good fuel into your body.
That's 100% true. On the energy you put in is the energy you can get out. And so many people, and that's a big part of the show and what we're doing. If every day you're operating at 40% or even 60%, you don't know that, right? I've had friends that, I was talking to a guest just the other day that had an allergy and didn't realize. And then it's like a light switch and saying, wait, I was in my 20s. Why am I low energy? What is going on? And then made these changes. Wow. My life is now in Technicolor. I was living in black and white before, but now it's so different. And it can seem a little like proselytizing, right? A little bit religious. But when you have that insight and that breakthrough personally, you want to help people, right? This is your purpose, right? This is from the beginning. This is my purpose, to help people. How do I show them what's possible? And with your content, with the story you're telling, you're absolutely doing it.
Sorry, can I add one quick thing to that? So my TikTok is mainly beauty and food and wellness, right? On TikTok, I share so many products, right? And the reason I share these products is because they changed my life in some way. And some people think, well, how could you get excited about that? It's like, if this has changed my life in some way, I need it to change your life in some way. Yeah. So here's a way for you right here. TikTok Shop is a brand new thing. And it's the best thing ever because you are basically doing what I do on, sharing information, but you don't have to click out to sort of like what you're doing, which is amazing. You don't have to go to exterior. The link is right there and you shop within the app. And it's the best thing for me because now I get to share all my secrets, all the things I've learned over the years, being on set, all the things that are helping me, whether it's makeup, clean makeup, maybe it's not 100% clean, but it does this, it's just a place for me to be able to share it and for people to be able to get it immediately. So that's super exciting about what I'm doing on TikTok right now.
And get the story behind it, right? Like so much is the why behind this to say, hey, is this maybe relevant to me or not?
Right.
So with the food, because you're eating very much whole foods and getting a lot of the nutrients there, do you find you have a need for supplementation? Do you take anything outside of just meals to say, hey, I need to top up on these things?
I do. I think certain supplements, we actually, unfortunately, can't get some certain, minerals we can't really get from our food anymore, unfortunately. So I do supplement. I take, so I'm a big fan of Symbiotica.
Okay.
I take I take a lot of supplements from them. I take their vitamin C. I take D3K2. I take glutathione from them. They have a mushroom blend. I drink their matcha. I think that they're very clean, and I'm just a very big fan of their products and of the owner, the founder, Chervin. His name's Chervin. I'm not good at pronouncing it, but he his purpose and his why. And so I love what he's putting out. It's very similar to the way I do my oils and why. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of that. I also take Armra colostrum, which I find is a really important supplement. And I only learned this because I breastfed for 4 years. Yeah. And I was like, breast milk is everything. So colostrum is very powerful, and it's great for the gut, and it's great for overall wellness and immunity and all that. And I take chlorella. I supplement. Put them in. I take, just certain things that I'll put in smoothies, or, I take in the morning that I feel like just complete everything.
Yeah. Do you do extra protein in your smoothies?
I do. Yes. I do use the Symbiotica protein powder. I also like Four Sigmatic because they have a mushroom. Yeah. I like them. And they also sweeten with monk fruit. So I'm not a big fan of stevia or any of the, those kind of sweeteners. Okay. So those are the two that I've been really rotating between.
Yeah. You mentioned the Symbiotica, his why and purpose is very similar to what you're doing with the essential oils with Madison Charles. Can you say more about that and the use cases for essential oils, how people can incorporate that? Yeah.
So when I was on my journey, I had gotten into essential oils, funny enough, actually on the movie that I told you about at the beginning of this conversation, the one that I was like, whatever, I could take it or leave it. It actually changed my whole life because I got onto the set of that film and my co-star and I got sick. We caught something on the plane. And my makeup artist happened to be an aromatherapist. And I was never into essential oils before. Yeah. I didn't even know what they were. Or I didn't understand it. And so she started feeding us all these essential oils. And we were able to make it through night shoots, whereas I would normally be curled up in bed. Right. It was helping my symptoms. So, and then, my skin was a problem at the time. So she started giving me advice on how to use essential oils for my skin. And she just started guiding me. And I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. That same time, I flew back to LA. I got off the plane and production gets you a driver. So my driver was this beautiful older man. And I said, oh gosh, I have a headache. He said, how's your flight? I said, oh, it's okay. I have a headache. And he said, oh, I have this beautiful French lavender oil that I think that you should smell, and it's going to help your headache. And at this point, I literally went on Instagram to show people that my driver was making me sniff something, in case something happened to me.
Like license plate number, license ID. Yeah.
And I said, oh, wow, this is weird, because it actually did help. Lavender is not known to help headaches, but for some reason it calmed me and it did help me. And I said,
that's for my daughter. Lavender is her go-to when she needs to calm.
Yes. Yeah. And so I said, okay, this is weird. This is twice that I maybe should pay attention to this. And then I got back, and my sister-in-law, who's a yoga and Ayurvedic specialist, had mentioned that she's getting into essential oils. And I said, okay, this is something obviously I need to pay attention to. What is going on? And at first I was actually very resistant to it. And I thought, what could they do? I was skeptical, like a lot of my actual, my fan base was very skeptical in the beginning too. And I started using them, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to become a little chemist. And I started putting these blends together, and I'd have family and friends come over, and, my brother-in-law came over with allergies. He was allergic to the dogs. And I put this blend together, which is now our breathe roller. And I said, just roll this all over you. 10 minutes later, I looked at him and I said, how are your allergies? completely stopped the attack.
Wow.
Or, my mom has chronic pain in her ankle and we made a blend for that for pain, which is now our massage oil.
Yeah.
And the thing about essential oil, so knowing that fragrance was so toxic, my goal was, hey, let me launch this for my small community of people on my blog. And if it helps one person, then I've done my job. So initially, the idea was, let me launch clean, non-toxic perfumes that also have therapeutic benefits. So, hey guys, let's ditch our perfumes because they're toxic. Let's use these rollers that smell amazing. But guess what? Also, you're going to have less anxiety, or also you're going to sleep better, or also it's going to help with your allergies. And so we had 5 main oils that we decided to launch with. And it just so happened that I had made a blend, or my sister-in-law made me a blend to balance your hormones for fertility. And I just so happened to get pregnant 2 months after I was using that oil, right?
Okay.
And we launched December of 2018, but I got pregnant, end of December, right? So as I launched in January, I was pregnant with my first child, right? So this was like, wow, I've been doing all of this stuff. I've been using these oils. I've been eating like this. I've been cleaning everything up. And now my miracle is here. Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to share this with whoever will listen. Like I said, if it's one person and I can change their life, great.
Yeah.
So let me just make it available, thinking nobody would buy it. Right. We sold out thanks to, again, my soap fans at the time. First run, we were out and I was shocked. And then there were a lot of skeptical people, but then as they used it and the feedback started coming in and people were like, this is changing my life. And the thing that people don't understand, I think, about essential oils, and for anyone skeptical, is this is what we as humans used for medicine for thousands and thousands. Go back to ancient Egypt, like thousands of years, essential oils were what we used, right? And the way they work is they get into your cells, because our skin is our largest organ, right? So, and there through sense, like there's actual for the science-based people, there's actual scientific evidence now that when you do inhale essential oils, it does do something to the brain. My uncle is a very, very, very Western doctor, and he's the one who sent me the article because he needs that science, right?
Right.
As do many people. And so it does through the sense of smell, but also through your largest organ. It is absorbed into your cells and it starts to do what it needs to do from the inside. So the same way that bad ingredients get into your cells and can wreak havoc, the good ingredients are getting in and causing beautiful things to happen.
That's amazing. I mean, I just can't help but come back to this narrative arc that you may play on screen for others, but it very much, when you talk the culmination of your pregnancy as this is all coming together, it is your narrative arc of these are the challenges. Here are the tools. Here's the map that I use to the extent it can be helpful to others and sharing that. Now, with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and everything you have going on, what does your sleep routine look like?
Okay. That's an area I need to work on for sure. Because I do a lot of things during the day and I work around the clock, because when my work day is over, I'm with my kids. And then when my kids go to sleep, I'm back to work, unfortunately. But because I'm wearing so many hats and doing so many things, my mantra is I'll sleep when I'm old. Now, the other side to that is sleep is so important for your mental health, for your well-being, for your physical well-being, so it's something that it's the one pillar I feel like that needs a lot of work. I put my kids to bed. My husband and I take about an hour to sort of like do our own thing and decompress after the day. And then we come together and we have our time. And that's usually around, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So we have that time from about, 8:30, 9 to about 11.
Okay.
When I should go to bed. He goes to bed at 11 and he's always between 10:30 and 11. He's like, babe, we got to go to bed. And I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. I'll be there in a second. And then 2 hours go by and because I'm editing or I do everything myself. Right. So it's hard for me to delegate. There's certain things, of course, with my business that are delegated out. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with certain things but when it comes to the creative, I need to do it myself. So I'm editing, I'm, finishing up certain things that I have to do. And then I need to just decompress. So I need to read a little bit. I need to like,
turn it off, right?
I can't.
Yeah.
So, and then I finally go to bed. My 4-year-old, both kids actually this morning, it was 6 a.m. and they were ready to start the day, and it is what it is, but I have to work on that. I have to set an alarm at 9 p.m., put my phone away, put everything away, and go to bed with my husband at, 10:30.
Yeah. Yeah. It does make me a little sad when you just said that, because it is so important. I used to think the same. And then you start seeing the research of a single night's bad sleep and what the precursors to Alzheimer's, how they all start showing up. Mm-hmm. And that, no, we can't actually wait till then. We really have to do it now.
And, my husband, we used to call it mom brain because he would mention how spacey I am sometimes, and I'm just tired. And it would just come from, my brain is constantly in, mom, are my kids okay? What do I need to do for my kids? What do I need to do for my marriage? What do I need to do for Madison Charles? What do I need to do for my TikTok content, my Instagram content? What am I doing for this? Like, it's constantly, there's just so much that I do in a day. So it's really hard to sometimes, just super like be present. And that's where the meditation comes in and the workouts.
Yeah. So the workouts, it seems almost unfair to ask this now after we just covered everything else, but on the fitness side, like, what does that look like? Because obviously that's this huge pillar of health.
Huge. And that's always been my thing. I was in the gym at 12 with my mom. She, like I said, she's always been into fitness. And so working out, and that's another thing that I really implement with my kids. Every day, they start their day after breakfast with movement. So no matter what, they are either outside, we're doing something, or we're jumping up, bouncing, on the trampoline. We're doing something because movement, I want them trained. You get up, you do your thing, you work out, because that has been my savior over these years in terms of mental health. So I try to work out every day. Doesn't always happen. That could look like, walking on the treadmill, going on the elliptical, taking my dog for a long walk in the neighborhood, taking the kids. But 2 to 3 times a week, I do Legree, which is high intensity, low impact workout. I have my machine in here. I do it on Zoom with, I've been working with Legree for a year and a half, almost, it's a year and a half now. It is the type of workout that it's the only time my brain shuts off. My brain shuts off and focuses on what I'm doing, because every movement is so, you have to really it's a mind-body connection. And so I'm addicted to that, because it's the one time that I'm not thinking about anything else, and I'm doing it for me. And you're building lean muscle. You're getting cardio, believe it or not, even though the movements are very slow. It's low impact, but the intensity is high. I'm sweating and I feel amazing. So that's
it's fitness. But I mean, when you're in that state, that's also meditative, right? Yes. Like, that is fitness can be the stress management, stress reliever as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check out.
And then sometimes I do
machines.
Legree. Oh my gosh. I have to, like, we need to talk about this off air too, because it's a complete game changer. Okay. And also I do Peloton. Sometimes I'll do some spin if I really need my head if I want to really like sweat and get, but I don't love high, like super, super, like things that are really hard on the body in that way. I feel like high intensity workouts like that can sometimes be very stressful, especially for women, can affect your hormones in a negative way, but sometimes in a positive way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, where you are in your cycle, everything, you got to be mindful of all that. Yeah. Before we jumped in, I was saying, I get overwhelmed just talking about all the different things that you do and are doing. And I'm no less overwhelmed having heard how you pull it all together. Kelly, it is amazing to see someone so authentically living and sharing her purpose in multiple different avenues. And I can't thank you enough for coming on our show and sharing this with our listeners today.
Thank you so much. I love what you're doing very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.